is I actually just went through this particular show off of a recommendation because I hadn't previously seen it. But this past week, Zoe Kravitz sort of spoke out, like minorly, I guess, against Hulu for their cancellation of the show High Fidelity. I don't know. Did you check that show out?
Um, so I mean, I've seen it and I've checked out the story. I'm not familiar with the show High Fidelity. I've never seen it.
Yeah.
I do, from reading the story, I do feel like Zoe Kravitz's concerns about the cancellation of the show are valid.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
let me give some
yeah,
background of the show. So basically, the show is a reimagination of the John Cusack film from I think it was like the early 2000s that the film was made. Um, but it basically just follows the owner of a record store and their misgivings and do's and don'ts as far as like relationship goes. And so let me just read from directly from the article here. This is an article from the Hollywood Reporter. Following the cancellation of Hulu's rom-com series High Fidelity earlier this week, cast member Zoe Kravitz briefly called out the streaming service for not having enough diversity in its programming slate. So Zoe actually played the character that John Cusack played in the film, and she plays a character called Rob, short for Robin, and so I have some particular thoughts about the actual series, but I'll go through kind of what Zoe said about the actual cancellation. She says, I want to give a shout out to my high fidelity family. Thank you for all the love and heart you put into the show. I'm in awe of all of you, and thank you everyone who watched, loved, and supported us. Hashtag breakups suck, which was basically like the theme of the show. And then she further said, and I think this was as a response to, I think, something Tessa Thompson had actually said about the show being canceled. And she says, it's cool. At least Hulu has a ton of other shows starring women of color we can watch. Oh, wait. So she obviously made that as a sarcastic reply to the show being canceled. And so before we jump into this completely, though, I found it very funny that in this Hollywood Reporter article, they put as like a little, the last line of it reads, Hulu's coming of age series Love Victor, which features a Latinx male lead character, was renewed for season 2 this week, which I thought was odd because it was basically just like them saying like, well, I mean, they got somebody,
this Mexican kid here. Like,
and also
it's not Mexican, first of all.
And also I
believe, like, we didn't know the difference.
I believe Zoe said, at least Hulu has a ton of other shows starring women of color. Like, and so it was just like, that's a strange thing to put at the end of the article, but in any event,
that's definitely just like, I've got black friends.
Yeah,
it's one of those comments.
It really is. But what do you think about her comments and if it's I guess warranted or not?
So, again, because I haven't seen the show, I'm not familiar with the show or the circumstances surrounding this. I really do wish I had much more to say here other than having read the article and just being able to like, regurgitate what's said here.
Sure.
I think that, we saw this with Monique and Netflix, right? Which, the judge, as recently as June, had ruled in favor of Monique in allowing her to pursue her like defamation case or whatever her case is against Netflix with regards to like lack of diversity for like women and their pay scale, right? I don't think just because we love Hulu and Netflix and all of these like streaming services that they are they're not doing some of the same things that have been done in Hollywood time and time again, where it's like, white male leads are getting paid more, and then after white male leads, it's like female leads, and then after that, it's like, it trickles down to minorities here and there. I'm really gonna have to take a look at the Hulu lineup and their like Hulu original shows, like when I get home, and see like how many Hulu original shows are actually starring women of color. And Zoe Kravitz might just have a point here. I don't think she would make these claims out of nowhere. I just don't know about it to say like she's 100% right or Hulu's 100% wrong, but I don't think that her claims are like unsubstantiated.
Yeah.
And good for her for like being bold enough to say these things and like put them like on blast. because the consequence is, oh hey, you never do another project with Hulu, or your next project is not featured on Hulu, and then Netflix might look at this like, we don't know, like So good for her for like being bold enough to speak out.
Yeah. No, I actually think that she is completely justified because, at least to my knowledge, and again, everybody can correct me if I'm wrong, there actually isn't really many, if any at all, other series on Hulu that are being led by a woman of color. Might be wrong about that. Looking the preliminary sort of like look that I had, it didn't seem like that was the case. That they actually had any original programming that was from a woman of color. So I think she's 100% right on that. At least again from my initial sort of look at it. But then also too, after watching the show, I have some very specific feelings about the show. But I don't think it warranted the show to be canceled. It actually does seem kind of a mystery, and it was very sort of like warmly received, at least as far as I know. But I think that my feelings about the show are separate from whether it should have been canceled or not. And I think it was a good enough show to warrant, like at the very minimum, a second season. And the fact that in this climate that they decided to cancel it is more than a mystery of,
Yeah.
well, why? Why? What is, like, was it the budget for the show? Was it, what was it that would inspire them to actually cancel the show?
Because it seems like there was no like hard explanation.
Yeah, it didn't really seem like that was the case, that there was any sort of major explanation for why the show was canceled. But what I also wanted to do was just see what the actual rating was for the show. So that's actually what I'm looking up right now. Is what it was rated on IMDb, 7.7, and on Rotten Tomatoes, 86%.
So it has really good ratings.
Yeah, so pretty decent fucking ratings. So I don't fucking know what would be the reason for them to cancel the show. And again, like critically speaking, like it was actually pretty well received. I don't know if it was roasted by by all the critics. At least it doesn't seem like that. So yeah, in the middle of this climate, I don't know. That's a bold move, Hulu.
Yeah.
You either really hated the show or
Disney
or
Plus
something.
is like, we're about to sell those Mulan tickets, steal those customers. We're gonna launch a women of color campaign.
Yeah.
We're gonna reach out to Zoe Kravitz right now, actually.
Yeah. So yeah, shout out to Zoe Kravitz. I thought I think she did a great job with the show. Some of the issues that I have with the show are more to do with the actual story itself. Like I don't think they gave her character of Rob more to do than just the whole idea of, and this is something they do in rom-coms a lot, which is just have their stories center around like the love interest, or like what's going on in their love life, and they don't give them enough to do it. She owned an entire record store, and I don't feel like they spent enough time dealing with shit within like even just a record store.
Yeah, it was more of like, you are your relationship, and that's who your character
basically
is.
And at least that's what it felt to me. It might not be that way, but who knows, to other people. But